So we are going to talk about digital toolkit and putting things together. Before we get into that, let's keep some things in mind. Um, what do tools do? Tools or technology, they're supposed to make our lives easier, simpler, possible, something is possible, scale our efforts, and for good or for less, they change over time. So I like everyone to think about flexibility. Sometimes being flexible with the way you work can make transitions easier because change is coming, and are you prepared for it? So, so what does it do? What are your needs? In an ideal world, that would be a matchup. So the tool, what the tool does and what you need it to do. That's not always a perfect matchup, um, but if you can come close, then you can just start getting to work. I would suggest when choosing tools, you have a quick and dirty feature list. Emphasis on the quick. I am the queen of analysis paralysis. It doesn't work. It's not great. There is no perfect software or solution. Find something that meets most of your needs and then get to work. There are a bajillion, if that were an actual figure, there are bajillion tools that can do certain things um, for your group. Cost. So remember, save for a few exceptions, companies are out to make money. The pricing model or the offerings may change, um, but there, by and large, there is a lot of free things or a lot of low cost things that your group can use. If you actually have a 501c3, you can get a discount at many vendors. Most places do have a free trial. Um, they're on the pricing pages, which we'll go over in just a bit. It can be a little tricky. Um, so make sure you keep on top of free trials. And if you're looking at prices, many places will have a monthly price and then an annual price, but they'll list the annual price in a monthly way. So it looks a little bit disingenuous. Just make sure you're looking around to make sure you're not budgeting, because I know we all have budgets that we have to work with. Um, and the monthly price is almost always higher than the regular price. So, um, who can access it? How can you access it? When you're looking at solutions, you want to be mindful of how many people need to access this simultaneously. Is it, um, do we actually need all the people um, using this software at the same time? Could we share access? So be mindful, a lot of solutions have multiple users. Sometimes it's one user, and those sets of features will put you either in the free category, the next one up, or even the next one up. So I would just add it to your tally of things that you are looking for in a solution. How can you access it? Uh, a lot of things that have been made are cross-platform, which means they can work on the web. They have a phone app. They work on Macs. They work on PCs. I would suggest that you look at your community, know your community, and I wouldn't pick something that's iPhone only if only one person has an iPhone, or installing things on the desktop may not be the best solution for something that holds data. If it's just a tool that's a pass through that doesn't hold data, I think that's okay. But if something that's holding data, you probably want to look at something that's more accessible, because when you have that accessibility, that gives you wider access to um, people helping and sharing the work, because it's called friends of the park, not friend of the park. It's teamwork. Uh, so can they work together? Does that make sense? And here I'm going to switch to um, Some tabs I have open here. This came up actually in a meeting earlier this week. Google is, as Kayla said, a real powerhouse of products. And I know Friends of the Park groups find themselves needing to connect email to the calendar, to storage, really. I think it's really convenient when you can attach, maybe like, some receipts that you have to an email you're sending out, you know, to Park Pride. And it has not only these apps, you can not only get all of these programs, but you can actually add more apps. There are millions of people using Google and other tools, so you can actually add other apps to maximize your use of the tools you're already using. Google is not the only place in town. It depends on how your group works. I use Trello for some project management stuff, and just for Trello is kind of a card-based thing. It's really simple to use. You can drag things around. And they also have all of these things that connect. They can do Google Drive, Slack, and Slack is another tool. Yes? What was that?
I think you're good, Marlena. Someone was just unmuted.
Okay. All right. So Asana is another kind of a powerhouse application where you can connect your tools to other tools. There's Gmail, there's Zoom, so that if you're working together as a group, some of your tools can also work together. Not all the tools, like Canva doesn't have to work with every other tool that you have. I think it just makes sense to connect the tools that you do have together. So next, I would say write it all down. Documentation. Everybody at Park Pride knows that I harp on about documentation. You all have lives. You're trying to activate your parks. You're trying to support what's going on in your communities. You can't do it alone. Your brain is not your brain is sort of like a computer, but not always the best one. And it's not great for sharing information. The best documentation is easy to search, easy to find, easy to update. Documentation is kind of a living thing. So it doesn't have to be some complicated thing. You're just basically saying, hey, this is the tool we use for like our finances, specifically for passwords. Just make sure you have a process. You don't have to have a full-blown password management system. But I would definitely have a process. What you don't want to have happen, I've seen this over and over again, is it's on some random slip of paper somewhere or in a spreadsheet on someone's desktop called passwords. So safety is a little beyond the scope of this talk, but make sure you're keeping those credentials safe. But basically write down, hey, the credentials will be in this area. This is what we use for this. What is the website for it? What is our procedures around it? And I wouldn't just use it for that. I would roll this into your succession planning. I mean, the documentation can be as easy as a folder on Google Drive with documents in it. So I can go into the demonstration of Wix. So Wix, along with Weebly and Squarespace and several other, more than a couple of other programs, are really helpful in getting your presence on the web. So here I have a website. Let's create a new website. So I've already gone ahead and created the account, because you don't need to see that part. It says sign up, and you give it your email and you create a fantastic password. So with Wix, they ask you these questions, but in reality, none of this is important, and you don't see Friends of the Park group here. So I just usually choose business, and eventually you can basically choose your own template. I'm not very familiar with having this automatically be created for you. If you want to try that out, that's great. But just I think the big caveat with Wix is that if you have a template and you publish it, you cannot change the template after you publish it. There's a way to go about it, but it involves some downtime and stuff. But with Wix, you have a lot of choices you can choose. You can change colors and imagery and layout and content and all of that. And once you change all of those things, to me, it's a completely different website. So I wouldn't stress about if you have a change later, because you're growing as an organization. You're going to have changes. So we're going to just circle, circle, dot, dot, and we're going to choose, let's look at this fancy car. So we're going to view, and then we can actually view in full demo if you're previewing templates. I wouldn't spend too much time on it. If you have kind of an idea of what you want, I would. It is a great thing to have kind of a list of what you want, the content, some pictures, all set aside in a folder, ready to go, so that when you're in here using this tool, that you'll be able to go without because you'll see all the templates, you're like, ooh, ah, and you'll get mesmerized, but you have a plan. This is, you're trying to get outside and play in the park. So make sure you have your plan ready to go before you attempt to look at templates, because I could sit here forever and look at templates. So once you choose a template, you go to edit this site, doing some configuration. Now it hasn't been published yet. There is a giant publish button. And once you hit that button, you can change stuff inside, but you can't change the template. Okay, it's still going. This does take a little while. Take a sip of tea while it's doing that. All right. Maybe, all right. Yay, we have now a new website. So Wix is very, it kind of hides how advanced it is, but it is very, if you're like a little more tech savvy, you can get into the nitty gritty. The first thing to note are the big areas. So you have your main menu here, and then you have kind of the editing toolbar. You can add pages, you can add features. They have some deeper features. Now be mindful, they still want more money from you, so that some of these features like member pages, maybe they have some costs to them. So just don't click on everything right away. You can change the background of these items. You can add all sorts of things. This is you can add buttons, galleries. Even if you have social media stuff, you can just, a lot of the stuff is just click and drag. So boom, right there. I mean, they already have social here, but if I wanted like a different color, I could do that. And everything is contextual. Once you click on it, it will bring up a little menu here. Actually, the literal menu has its own like mini tool here. You can create subpages, you can move things around, and it will actually change it in the actual menu. And that menu is not just on that page, it's for the entire site. Also for the entire site is the entire heading. So above this red line, that's the header. So I can actually add things in the header, and that will change across the site if you're so inclined. And also across the entire site would be the footer here. And so you can bring in custom art. You can have all the colors you want. Again, I would choose the colors before you get here because that just helps you streamline your process. But there are so many options here. It might be even good, even the best thing to do is sketch out, even just, Word or pen and paper, what you want your site to look like. Over here, you'll find some more refined editing tools. You can do some alignment here, copy paste, do things like if you don't like something in the layout, you can basically delete it. So I don't need the services area. I can actually just delete the whole thing. I don't want it there. So, and you can put it back. So always be saving. That's another mantra. So that you're not losing work. So here's the kicker with Wix. So we don't want to publish just yet. So let me call this at good old Acme Park. Wait. All right, but don't publish it yet if you're not quite ready. No one has your URL yet. Some bots may pick it up. Bots are little machines inside the internet that do stuff, and they may see it, but people won't see it. But don't publish it yet if you're not ready. So you can look to see how it looks on mobile, which a lot of people are thinking about mobile first, as we're hooked to these devices almost 24/7. And so that if something looks weird or you want to move things around, you can actually do it in this view. And I think this is very helpful, especially, and we'll get to the digital divide in a bit after the breakout. People are, this is basically their main computer now. There are people that don't have internet, but this is a main computer for a lot of people. So I think that's it. That's just a very high level kind of overview of Wix. The build out here, when you actually log back in, back to, this is what you'll see when you log back in. They have a ton of questions for you. Most of them you can ignore, but you definitely want to go through the setup your site steps. A custom domain would cost extra. You don't need that. Get found on Google. I believe that is free. It's just hooking it up to your Google account. Google Analytics comes free with, if you have a Google account. It's kind of a way to monitor how many people are seeing your site, and what's working and what might need to be revisited. But to edit the site, you just click on this site actions and you can go back into editing the site. So I'm guessing I'll hand it back to Ellen for breakouts.
Thank you so much, Marlena. And I want to make sure we get through Q&A. So if we have time for that first breakout, I'll send us over. But we have 2 questions in the chat, and then everybody, you're welcome to ask your questions. You don't have to do it in the chat, but you're welcome to. You can just speak up, but we'll start with Taryn's questions. Is there a good way to upload documents like agendas and minutes on Wix?
That is an excellent question. I believe there are some, you can upload items to Wix to have it. I guess my question to you is this for everyone to see the minutes, or is this a private? Are these minutes private somewhat? If they're private, you will need a way to protect them. I'm pretty sure that Wix will sell you something to do that. But if you want everyone to have it, you can do PDFs, images, Word documents. I would probably go with a PDF so it's more accessible to everyone, but you could definitely set up an area on a website and list links to documents.
Thanks, Marlena. And I think you kind of covered this, but she also asked, do you have to buy your domain name? And it sounds like you don't, unless you want a custom. Is that right?
Correct. Your site name, and I believe that Cedar, is that the Cedar Park?
Taryn is with Friends of Choswood Park.
No, I guess I'm referring to, there was a chat going back.
Oh, okay.
Just a minute. I'm trying to remember. So you don't need to buy a domain name if you don't want one. If you are okay with bobbyjonespark.wixsite.com, if you're fine with that, then you don't have to buy one. If you're not fine with it, then I would go and buy one. I probably wouldn't do it from Wix. I'd probably go to a separate vendor. And domain names, I guess in the grand scheme of things, aren't as expensive as some other things, but they do cost money. If you could like buy one for 5 years, and then you won't have to worry about it until that 5th year. And I think you might be anywhere from like 10, 20 bucks a year. So it's a good investment if you're looking long-term and keeping that name around.
Got it. Jim put in the chat that Gmail comes with a website, not a domain, and no design.
Google Sites.
Google Sites, still an option. Does anybody else have questions for Marlena?